Welcome to What the Flicks recap of The Americans, season 4, episode this number.
Dope.
Oh, that's a shame.
Episode 9, The Magic of David Copperfield 5, the Statue of Liberty disappears.
Yeah, what
we needed it written down.
We needed it written down, and I needed not to make the app go away. A lot of stuff here, a lot of really interesting stuff. Of course, most struck right off the bat by Elizabeth yelling at Paige instead of Philip.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
Which I'm sure a family dynamic a lot of people would recognize.
Totally, and it's a good thing. I think that the show does really well.
To me, this episode seemed like it was about the stuff that spy shows and movies don't generally talk about, which is this is super stressful.
Right, that's right. No.
And it's stressful on the people doing it. It's stressful on their like minions or their agents or their whatever. Like everybody is under stress here.
That's right.
And that's not glamorous. It's not exciting. But in a show like this, where you can sort of take your time and explore the various facets, why not cover that?
I think this show is what the best narrative television does now at its best. Not necessarily that each episode is as thrilling as an episode of some other show, Game of Thrones, or even a Billions in sense, but they set the stage for Philip's unraveling, not unraveling, but Philip's legitimate questioning, Philip wondering whether he, in episode 1 of season 1, and there have been stages of it, and it's not a thing like, oh yeah, but you could tell by that look that guy's worried about it. This has played out in 100 different ways, leading to Est, and leading to him, revealing himself to Martha, and in this episode here, visiting the grave, and then having an explosive fight with his wife. I just think that's really good, that they take the time to tell a story that really should be told solely to a psychotherapist. I mean, this is watching Philip's progression, and it just feels incredibly real. So that's why that's exactly what you're talking about. That stuff, the spy stuff that we don't see. That line from Elizabeth to Paige of then you get yourself in the mood. And that means everything. To kill, to have sex, to whatever it is.
She hasn't had that luxury in decades.
That's right.
Right. What she felt
in
like
the
doing.
mood. Yeah.
I always love a good Claudia Gabriel scene.
Of course.
That was great stuff.
Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, your agents don't trust you or whatever. Yeah.
I liked how they kind of explored, just even to the extent of, not only like what's going to happen to Martha, but then you've got the Northrop Grumman woman who's been drinking and is clearly flipping out about all this stuff. And it's like, I sort of like the reverberations of it, and how even those reverberations wind up hitting Stan, and his boss, obviously because of their connection to Martha and their having been completely oblivious to all this stuff.
Yeah, and everything else that went on as he listed the things.
Yes.
Like, you could survive this, but not this, and this. And then my secretary leaves the pen and marries a Russian agent.
And I don't collect stamps.
I don't collect stamps. So, but also a great thing that the show does that no other show does. 7 months later is how a season starts.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, like, is this season finale already?
I think there's 12. I think they got 3 more. So they just like, no, this is, again, like this boldness to make these sort of narrative decisions that, at some point, I imagine they were like, can we just jump forward 7 months in the middle of a season? Yes, if we say we can, we can do it. Let's do it. And Paige is just, rather than like, hey, this is fun. I'm good at this. Yeah. She's just getting totally beaten down by this, Pastor Tim, I can't wait to babysit them babies. You can feel the baby kicking. I said, I can't wait to babysit. I shot 4 under par.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is, it's not even like she's not even driven by ideology. She's driven by like, I shot my fat mouth off, and now I have to like make up for this, or we're all doomed. Right. So she doesn't even have ideology to fall back on.
Did you see the coming next week?
I can't remember.
She's driving.
Oh.
Yeah. Paige,
and that's right. She's driving the white
Paige is driving,
male menopause car. Yes, that's true.
But really good conversation, obviously, between Stan and Philip and Stan. Obviously, well, you have to admire Stan because he how many FBI agents have we seen in shows who 100% are not interested really in furthering their own career. I mean, he is like his motivations. It may end up helping his career,
Sure.
right? But his motivations are, and that's why that talk that John Boy gives him at the end might land, because he doesn't care. He didn't do this. He wasn't trying to get Richard Thomas's job.
Sure, yeah,
right.
no,
You know, this was just consistently what he thought. You know, with a screw up with Nina, obviously, but what he thought was the right thing to do, and always sort of in the interests of America.
I also like how they're giving us those young Lee scenes, which are kind of a respite because they're so, you know, like that's a nice identity that Elizabeth is putting on, and the Mary Kay lady, you know, and they're always very pleasant interactions, and they're doing fun stuff, and the show won't tell us what it's about.
Right. Except we got from Franklin J. You'll obviously continue.
Can do the young Lee thing. Yeah, like, wait, what's going on?
What is that? Yeah. Right. Very, very. Unless they think she's recruitable, or
who knows? Or she's related to somebody who's got an in with, you know, Kim Jong Il at the time. I don't know.
Right. Who knows? Just. You know, of course. I mean, really, I've seen 3 recently to kind of catch up. But you know, I thought this is sort of the third in an arc.
The Martha arc.
Of the Martha arc, and so obviously let's talk about Martha. So, well, first of all, before we leave, because we talked about David Copperfield, like I love, because it really does as we've seen the totalitarian brutalism of the Soviet Union. They don't pull any punches there, and in fact, just offhandedly, the way Frank Langella tells this story that's supposed to get sympathy for him.
Right.
I had to go in, and one of my friends had become an enemy of the state. You know, says you.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I had to pull him out of his house, and his wife screaming, and his children obviously never to be seen again. Whether he's at a work camp in Siberia or was summarily executed 2 days later, and you're supposed to be like, oh,
poor you.
Poor you. You know, so you're reminded of how brutal these guys. But then, you know, the show's done a really effective job, as of course they're stealing a bioagent that we're prepared to use on them, right? But also just the notion of Americans getting to understand their liberty and freedom from David, from David Copperfield. I mean, with the teeth and the hair.
Well, you know, and this being the week of the Ted Cruz exit speech, you know, again, there's I will never stop fighting for our freedom, and that like these buzzwords that just get thrown around by people that have no idea what they mean, and I'm sure it's not like, you know, it's the same on the other side of the Iron Curtain. It's just the buzzwords are, you know, community and, you know.
Right, but it's funny because I yes, of course, but when Frank Langella tells that story, and I'm like, God, we got to beat these guys, even though we already did. But we got
spoiler.
But then it is David Copperfield.
It is David Copperfield.
I don't think I realized until now
that he's the Charles Dickens character.
that they have the same name. Right. I'm like,
God.
Well, I knew the Dickens character. I didn't, you know, I'm not a big magic guy. I missed that craze.
I think I watched that stupid special
remember
with the disappearing.
I remember that thing. But it just seemed like a trick rather than anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. But like then I watch him talk about freedom, and I'm like, no, I'm with them. I'm back. Yeah.
I'm glad this episode did give Henry a really sharp observation, which is that Sloppy Joes would be great for dinner.
Sloppy Joes would be great for dinner.
Always.
Totally. Yeah. And the tension between those two, I mean, between Philip and Elizabeth, really good. I mean, that's, you know, because of course their intimacy is nice. That into the episode before when he explains Martha, like, I don't think you get what this is. Like, I'm worked up because I care about her. She's a person, and she trusted me 100%.
Right.
And I'm the entire reason why her life has now been potentially ruined. Why she's a pretty good candidate to kill herself. Right. And obviously she considered it there on that bridge. You know, it was it was at least a fleeting moment. But you know, it's not romantic. I don't want to be with her. I love you. Don't miss that. But yet then they have these explosive fights. So did we know about what he's talking about? Did we know that Philip went back and slept with the mother of his child?
That was news to me, but it might have come up before. Maybe, and then I knew about the civil rights guy.
Right, of course, that was a big deal to her. Yeah. But I don't think we knew that other thing.
Yeah. But you know, you always get taught is when you have an argument with your spouse, you're not allowed to drag in old shit.
Right, but interesting that the show would, and the viewers will tell us or tell you, whether that's a new thing we learned. Interesting that the show, if it wasn't, would give us some relevant piece of information in the middle of a huge family fight.
Right.
You know?
Well, there was they dropped in the mention of his son,
Yeah.
early on. Gabriel talks about that.
Right, that he's back from anyway.
Afghanistan, right?
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so Martha.
Yeah, no, well, we talked a little about her last time. I mean, just how it would be so easy for this show to make her this kind of pitiable, lonely middle-aged woman character. And, and that's even touched on this week where Elizabeth is describing her as sort of simple and uncomplicated. And he's like, no, she was complicated. She had depth. She had, there were things going on there, and so for the show to acknowledge that and to cast such a wonderfully empathetic actress to really bring all that out, is a lot richer portrayal than you would get for a secondary character on a lot of shows.
Yeah, she and her departure there, the wonderful kindness that she shows to Clark.
Yeah, where it's all about, you take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Doesn't get it. I mean, there's no reason she would. She's been tricked, but I mean, she should. If there's ever been a character who has a right to be
furious
and outraged right now, I'm curious. Also, she's being fooled right up until the end, because if she had turned herself in, I suppose I don't want to. Maybe I'm being naive, and maybe she would have gotten Alder James prison sentence, right?
Right.
But she can make a legitimate case. He posed as though he were a government worker.
Yeah, but at some point the line was crossed as she knew what was going on, and there's that guy who was dead, and
right. Well, then she thought they are holding it over me. I'm just saying she could, but saying the alternative is busting up this ring. I mean, she has, I mean, if ever there's a person who they could be like, okay, you're now going into witness protection, like
I don't know. I mean, in 1983, maybe not. I think if you're literally in bed with the Soviets, I don't know how.
Certainly they could. No question that the Soviets would, their tact would be to convince her that she's looking at 70 years in prison, if not execution. So I get that, but I think that it's
she could make a case.
The kind of person needed to talk to a lawyer.
I guess. Now, what I was noticing was, they were shipping her off to like Prague via Havana. I'm thinking, stay in Havana.
I thought the exact same thing. I kept saying to my wife, I was like, just live in Havana.
Live in Cuba. Like, you can learn Spanish way easier than Russian. The weather's better. The food's better.
Yeah. Don't, and it's less foreign to an American.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, like, I don't know if
there'll be Canadians visiting all the time.
Maybe that's not hidden enough and you're too close to Guantanamo. I don't know, but
Yeah, don't, right, Cuba. Yeah.
Hold out, for sure.
Totally,
no question.
Right, don't know, or maybe, or at least
stay in Prague,
stay in Prague, right,
yeah,
exactly.
Beautiful city.
Right, but don't go to Moscow. It's not going to work out for anybody. When I went to Cuba in 1999 during the Elian Gonzalez nonsense, which was great fun when I was working in Miami, working with Jack in Miami. But I went with and we were just overwhelmed by how the rest of the world doesn't do this boycott. So you're like those people are British, and the place is silly with Canadians.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So go to Cuba. Meet a Canadian tourist, marry him, done. Live in Toronto.
Look, what more do you want in a resort? Great weather, good food, and no Americans. That's got to be a real draw for a lot of people around the world, I would think. Like, totally. Yeah, sign me up.
No, that's right. The rest of the world is devastated by the fact that this.
Yeah, now we're going to come ruin it. Exactly.
We're going to love to go to Cuba.
We're going to have a goddamn TGI Fridays in the middle of Havana
now. What else did we miss there? Anything?
I think that's obviously also on the next week there's a lot of sick.
Yeah. So the at the S, I love, by the way, because I was confused. I was like, what? S seems like group therapy. It seemed great. Like, why did it fail? And Elizabeth reminded us why it failed.
Yeah, it was a Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme, right? But do you remember the blackboard and the handwriting on the blackboard?
Oh, I didn't see this.
It was perfect. No one can write on a blackboard like that. It was like Chiron Dawn. Like, I don't know what it's worth. Like that, I was like, this S handwriting is off the hook. Like, if that's what S teaches you, nobody can write on a blackboard that neatly. So I liked her explanation of it.
Yes, and it was interesting to hear it because the show had been so much from his point of view and what he'd been getting out of it that yeah, you find yourself thinking, oh, well then why isn't it still around? How did it fail? And then she's sort of like, yeah, this is why.
Yeah, right. You need another meeting, right? Anyway, great stuff. I don't think Pastor Tim had a line.
No, we did. He was visible, but
Visible in a couple of scenes.
sank a putt maybe, but that was about it.
Sank a putt, yeah. So and then 3 episodes left for him to survive. But again, other people killed right and left.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Martha exiled, and I thought. Do you think it was cheap at all that we didn't get that murder scene? I mean, part of the issue, they did not. I guess not in the end because we delivered the emotional impact.
Yeah, once you've hit her over the head with the bottle, I think we pretty much the rest is sort of
No, but she's squirming on the ground. I mean, it's clearly, and I guess because that was not her blood. That was so Elizabeth got cut herself.
Right, because that's when he's taking care of her later.
Some sort of struggle, some sort of.
And I don't know if you noticed, Matthew Reese directed this episode.
I did notice that Matthew Reese directed the episode, and so and Noah Emmerich has directed them as well.
Yes,
so, yeah.
yes.
All right, as always, good, compelling television there on the Americans. Back next week. Thanks.